Welcome to WCNC Charlotte To Go. The city of Charlotte remains totally gripped by Monday's ambush of 4 local officers. And we know that's what you want to know about, and we want to get you up to speed this morning after the loss of those officers on Monday. Dozens gathered at the vigil last night to pray for those officers and the families that they're leaving behind. And we now know more events are planned for today as well. Destiny Richards is now live for us to tell us how these fallen heroes are being remembered. Destiny, what can you tell us?
Good morning. We know that a law enforcement procession is expected to take place today in Mooresville. It's supposed to go several miles north on I-77 and then east on Highway 150. And the Mooresville Police Department is expected to release more details about that when they're made available. But it's just an example of ways that the community has really come together. And since Monday's tragedy, there have been memorials, flags flown at half-staff, and a gathering in the line of duty. This was the prayer vigil at Little Rock AME Zion Church last night. Community groups and local leaders organized the vigil to give space for people to process their grief and pray for the friends and families of the officers. There were several speakers, including Mayor Vi Lyles, and faith leaders who shared messages of solidarity.
I think it's important to show solidarity in the midst of a very difficult time so that the families know that they're being supported.
Just to remember we're stronger together, that when we live in ways that shows that violence can't defeat us, that we won't give in to it, we make the possibility of it in the future less.
And people are also showing their support and solidarity by donating to a GoFundMe benefiting the loved ones of these officers. It was created by Back the Blue NC and so far has raised over $90,000. So just a great show of support from our community. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Destiny, thanks for that. And we'll have more on some of the other ways people are remembering those officers coming up in a few minutes. Police are now, though, beginning to piece together more about that suspect in Monday's attack. Officers had gone to the home to serve a warrant for Terry Hughes Jr. Now, afterwards, investigators found an AR-style rifle inside the house, along with a .40 caliber handgun and well over 100 rounds of ammunition and magazines. We're also learning more about Hughes' criminal past. Just 3 months ago, he led deputies on a high-speed chase through Lincoln County. In fact, one of the warrants officers were trying to serve on Monday was related to that case. He also did some prison time for a different high-speed chase back in Alamance County in 2012. Along with charges for being a felon in possession of a firearm and several other pending orders. CMPD says Hughes was shot and killed during Monday's ambush.
Now, meanwhile, guys, the support continues to pour in for law enforcement in the aftermath of what really has been a tragedy gripping Mecklenburg County and the Charlotte area. So the Charlotte Knights wore hats with the CMPD logo during their latest game. There was also a moment of silence before the first pitch to remember the fallen and the injured officers. Now, this is a lot of news that we're handling over the next couple of days. And as the story develops, you're going to find our complete coverage right now on WCNC.com. We've also got a minute-by-minute timeline, as well as ways that you can donate to the officers' families as well. So we had a QR code, or you can either head over to our website. That's WCNC.com. This has quickly turned into a national story.
Yeah, it really has.
Started as like some kind of chatter over our scanners where we were kind of hearing the situation as it unfolded, literally turned into a nationwide issue.
Right. Every network newscast,
everyone is following this day to day.
And we should say we have that procession today, and then on Friday there's the one uptown for the CMPD officer involved in this case. It's Larry, been a long time since we've seen a story quite like this.
It has been. I mean, you know, historically, there have been 2 other situations in the past 40 years, where 2 officers were unfortunately gunned down, and this is the largest in this city and more than likely in North Carolina. I don't recall anything of this magnitude any time in the past, and it's such a sorrowful thing to happen. I mean, you know, your hearts go out to the families and also to the other law enforcement officers who have to deal with this, and they're out there doing their job.
Sure.
Every day, had to go back to work, you know, and encounter what they normally do on
and their families.
And their families, exactly. I mean, everyone suffers from this, and we just, you know, we say big prayers to the families, and we thank them for what they do every day to protect us, you know. And the Charlotte Mecklenburg police officer was going in to help those other officers, and in that interim was gunned down himself. It's so sad.
I wish we would do I guess even more, I know we want to cover the facts and keep the story there, but what I think gets kind of missed maybe sometimes is that these people are friends. You know, they're not just folks that they're seeing when they clock in and put their badges on, put their uniforms on. When we were watching Jennings giving the press conference, he was talking about how he just remembered giving one of those fallen officers an award, thanking him, congratulating him.
Just last week.
Just last week.
Yeah. And, you know, he was here in talking to Ben a couple weeks ago in the studio. Police chief was here.
Yeah, police chief, yeah. And he talked about yesterday how there's, and he's talked about it with me a few weeks ago when he was on Flashpoint, that there's a systematic failure happening. That these people, you know, they can't arrest them quick enough, and then they get out again. And this is not a new thing. He's been talking. He went to the White House. He went to the White House in January to talk to the president about it at the time. So this is not specifically at the time he was talking about youth violence, but it's the same sort of broader issue about the justice system.
If you think of a fellow of that magnitude with that many convictions going back over the past 20 years, why he was not still serving time rather than out in a situation like this. It's scary. It's a scary situation.
It's clear from the press conference as well from the police chief that there's still a lot we don't know, and we expect to find out in the coming days. We know there's two witnesses that were inside the house at the time, the two women, and so far it doesn't seem like they're going to be charged or anything. It seems like, according to the police, that they're cooperating, and that's I think that's the bigger question that we were left with.
I think those women might be able to help answer that. So it'll be interesting.
In the early phase, that early afternoon, the chief said it appeared that the shooter, the suspect, went down, and that shots continued, leading people to believe there was a second shooter. He sort of, I don't want to say backtracked, because of course this information is fluid and changes, but yesterday he seemed less sure of that in his press conference yesterday. So
it's a very confusing situation. I mean,
as it usually is.
I mean, and you know, we can be thankful that there were not people in that neighborhood hit by the gunfire. There was so much gunfire, and their houses right next door, and people, and thank the Lord that no one was hit.
I think they said 100 casings were found. I mean, so that gives you an indication. And the police chief said he was going to spend a large portion of the next few days, of course, grieving, but also going over the body cam footage, because that will give a better idea of the timeline and how everything went down and what happened. We want to leave you with this, though. As I mentioned earlier, a memorial service now planned for Friday to honor fallen CMPD officer Joshua Iyer. That procession begins 9:30 at CMPD headquarters in Uptown. It will travel over just a few blocks to First Baptist Church. That's where a memorial service will be held at 10 a.m. He was a 6-year veteran of the department, and he leaves behind a wife and 3-year-old son. We'll, of course, continue to follow the story. We'll have the latest online, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning.
Have a blessed day, guys.